We're a small company that focuses exclusively on the biological agricultural sector of biofertilizers, biopesticides, and biostimulants. I'm going to speak first about the biocontrol market. And 25 years ago, this was a very small niche market worth about $100 million in total globally. It has seen tremendously fast and accelerating growth over the last, especially 10 years. At today's level, we see the market at $3.5 billion. We expect that it will grow to an excess of $5 billion sometime around 2020. And by 2025, we expect this market to exceed $11 billion. If we look at how the market is divided on a regional basis, Europe and North America are the two largest by value, but Latin America is the fastest growing. Overall, the market is growing at 16 to 17% globally, but in Latin America, it's growing at 18 to 20%. So while Latin America is not as large in value, it is definitely the fastest growing. USA and Europe today represent about 2/3 of the market in total value. We see them maintaining their dominant position in terms of value, but Latin America is going to start to gain and surpass Asia in terms of value. The EU, the growth is slower, and it's slower because of regulatory. The regulatory requirements in Europe have really repressed the development of biological products in Europe. Now, if we look at in terms of the type of product that's being sold, microbials represent about 55% of the market today, and microbials are the fastest growing segment. So we see them gaining share over the next 5 to 10 years. And by 2025, we believe that the microbials will be just under 60% of the biopesticide market. Over about the last 10 years, the conventional chemical market has grown at about a 5 to 6% per year average rate. Contrast that to the biopesticides, which are growing at 15 to 17%, and it's easy to see why some of the large chemical companies are quite interested in the biological markets. Now, if we switch gears and talk a little bit about biostimulants, the first thing whenever I talk about biostimulants is I have to talk about definitions, because it's always something that's confusing. In different parts of the world, people have different perceptions of what is a biostimulant. In some countries, they're treated as a fertilizer and are regulated under fertilizer law. In some countries, there is no regulation for biostimulants. So what that means at the market situation is, from a manufacturing perspective, because there's not a great deal of regulatory requirement, new companies, new products can enter this space quite easily. And also, there's a high degree of product commoditization. By that I mean there's the differentiation from a technical basis between products is low. And they're often combined with secondary and micronutrients to create a combined fertilizer biostimulant product. From the customer situation, what we see is that there's a lot of technical support needed for the successful use of these products. It's unlike pesticides, where it's clear what the objective and how you determine if the treatment was successful. With biostimulants, it's not always quite as clear-cut. If we look at the biostimulant market, it's just over a $2 billion globally today. We see that growing to in excess of $3 billion in 2021, and we'll probably be approaching $5 billion by 2025. And if we look at how this market breaks out, we see that Europe is the dominant geographical sector. Europe represents nearly 1/3 of the market value for biostimulants, with North America and Latin America really sort of splitting the rest of the world. And in Europe, it's more of a mature market, particularly in Western Europe, whereas in Latin America and North America, it's still a growth market. We see that the seaweed sector is the largest individual sector of the market, but the microbials are the fastest growing. So what are the key factors driving the growth, this rapid growth of the biocontrol and biopesticide markets? I really categorize it into 4 areas. One is the regulatory advantages that they have over the chemistry that makes these products and these companies quite attractive to the large chemical, fertilizer, and seed companies. Second is resistance, and the fact that the products act as very good resistance breakers when combined with chemicals in an integrated program. Third is the residues, which directly relates to that consumer demand. And fourth is improving R&D. It's interesting to contrast the biopesticides and the biostimulant sector. In the biopesticide, most companies really are founded and evolve with an R&D focus. If we contrast that to the biostimulant side, the companies have really evolved from a commercial marketing and sales aspect. So they are basically very good at distribution, positioning, and marketing their products. But long term, they need to develop scientific explanation for what their products do and how they work, and make them perform more consistently.